So just to clarify what this chart shows, and I know the audience doesn't have it, but for council, in the first part of the chart, it's coming down from the top where it says regional municipality, and there's a listing there for Newtown Borough, and you go across, this 2+1 all the way across is what is currently in our ordinance as it exists today. That for each one of these uses is two spots plus one overflow spot, so essentially 3 spots for each one of these. Okay. And then if we go further down, there's a highlighted section going across that says current proposal for Newtown Borough, and that's in italics and it's highlighted across, and that is what is in this ordinance, the draft ordinance that we have. That was what was in the recommendation from the Planning Commission last week, in the dark band across the bottom there. Okay. Then a number underneath where it says proposed previously, and it has a series of numbers underneath it. Were those numbers parking requirements that were proposed in the discussion of the Planning Commission early on and then rejected, or what are these numbers?
Those numbers at the first discussion we had, which I believe was in March, these numbers were presented, along with, let's say, everything on here above the non-regional locations, excluding Abington and excluding Northampton. And the Planning Commission in March looked at the grid and elected to go with, for lack of a better term, the Doylestown model, which appears there. And those numbers were questioned by both the zoning officer and the County Planning Commission.
Okay. So the numbers that are listed across at the Doylestown model, I guess we'll call it, those are the numbers that were sent up with the ordinance the first time it came back.
1.5, 175, 175.2, and 2.25.
Okay, so those are the ones
I memorized are incorrect. I'm sorry.
Okay, so those are the numbers that went up to Doylestown, not to Doylestown, but to the Bucks County Planning Commission the first time, and they sent them back. And okay, and those are the ones that, and then you went back and you looked at them and you said, well, these really aren't enough, and they were actually less than what you had started with. If that previously, the proposed previously is where you sort of started. Okay, so now you've got this list, the current ones that we're looking at. How do you feel about this amount of parking? Is this too rich? Is it about right? Do you think we need to talk about these numbers again? What is your recommendation? And then I can see other people who are here from the Planning Commission want to comment too. That's fine.
To hopefully answer those questions in the order that they were asked. When the question came back, both from the County Planning Commission and the zoning officer, and obviously neither entity, and rightfully so, said, we think you should be plugging in XXX numbers. I guess the first number we heard was the other day. I went back to the book, went back to the web, went back to the manuals, and expanded the field to see if something would pop out that would tell me, that would, let's say, confirm the zoning officers and the County Planning Commission's concern about too low of a number, and also hopefully validate the number that I had originally proposed, which appears in that very last line, which to me seemed to be the case. It proved that out until I came to Upper Southampton Township, which just seems to say 1 infraction, 2 infraction, and so forth, up to 4.5. So they're the leader in parking spaces for 4 bedrooms. We pull Upper Southampton out. Everything else is, relatively stable. And I plugged back my previously proposed numbers in that, see how applicable it was to Newtown. I felt it was, and reproposed it. We really didn't get into that discussion at our Planning Commission meeting last week. So my own feeling is, since we have all of this as reference information, now may be the time, if council is inclined to, is to take a look at this. Maybe have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and Borough Council, because we've made 2 proposals. If Borough Council would like to accept these numbers, certainly fine. I happen to think they may be a bit too rich for the borough with respect to some of the discussions at the business roundtable, and also that there are some lots in town that are underutilized now.
But I think that those would be dealing with business needs as opposed to the residential needs, so that's kind of a separate issue.
So it's another topic. Are these numbers assigned to residential? Too much for residential.
Okay. Bob, did you want to say something?
I guess to put the lid on this, Planning Commission is recommending the highlighted numbers. Correct.
Sorry, that.
The Planning Commission is recommending the highlighted numbers on this chart.
Yes.
Okay. So let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any other comments, questions?
I agree. We got to move on. I just wanted to note that Lynn Bush, who was a Planning Commission representative at the meeting, expressed an understanding of the original submission that was made as a result of that discussion last week, and also, I believe, was there for the discussion and the ultimate vote on this we have before us this evening, and was certainly not in a position to recommend it, but was comfortable with it, And I'll just remind council that this goes to the planning commission as well at this point for a more formal review if we move it on. So
I don't think it needs to, does it? It's already been, right?
has it,
Well, it can't win in the first ordinance.
This did go to the planning commission in the original ordinance that was drafted. As part of that, I was actually going to ask council.
You're
Well,
right, yeah.
I was going to ask council because it's been changed, and I'm not sure to what extent it has been changed. Not having looked from the original, whether council felt it would be appropriate to have them take another look and comment again on it. So I don't believe it's strictly necessary because I don't believe there have been any substantial changes, and any changes that have occurred have been in response to the planning commission. But because it's in a different form and there's been some further discussion, I thought council might want the planning commission to take another look at it. But
I guess the reason I mention it that way procedurally is that, and a number of people were present at that meeting as well as I was. I thought she was looking forward to receiving it back for an additional review. I could be wrong.
That's my recollection, like she was looking to receive it back, to comment back to us.
That's what
I don't believe she was there for the vote, because I think when I walked out, she was with me. She was?
Yeah, okay. Well, let me ask, is council ready to go forward with the draft ordinance that includes these numbers, or does council want to have a further discussion at our next work session about the parking numbers before we act on this in any direction?
To quote Bob Walker, why don't we move on?
Lid on it.
I'm sorry, put the lid
Put
on.
the lid on it. So what you're suggesting that we send it on to the Bucks County Planning Commission for review. Do we want to do this simultaneously with advertising it for adoption in September? Do those things simultaneously?
It's kind of a waste of money if they don't agree with it.
It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. She was there and certainly was very comfortable with it. That said, no sense in putting out, I guess, the expense for the advertising if something else is brought to our attention that may require a change of substance. So it's a long-winded way of saying, why don't we hold off on advertising?
Does anyone else in the Planning Commission want to comment at all?
point out, just keep in mind that the Bucks County Planning Commission technically has 30 days to review, so we may not get their comments back before the next work session, but if I get it out tomorrow, we should get it in
Okay.
by the next
All right. Well, then let's get some brief comments, and then we'll vote on this and move it on.
Good evening, Paul Salter, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. I think what Lynn made clear to us was that there is no set guidelines for this. It's up to the individual municipality to decide what's best for them. After 2 hours of discussion with Lynn and our board, that's what we came down, and we felt this was a good compromise. We realized that possibly our initial numbers in March might have been a little low, basically because they pointed out a couple things. There's no mass transportation. We also had a little bit of a discussion. I think it was very good, and I think our group, it was a unanimous vote. So, and as Lynn said, I think if we send it back to Lynn to review at the same time, they're basically saying that there is no set guideline. There's nothing in stone. It's what you, council, is comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with those numbers, that's your ordinance. So that's what you have to decide. Thank you.
So, do you think they would review it at their September meeting, which would be like it's going to be like the 4th, or not the 4th, the 6th, 7th? The same day as our work session is their meeting. They meet on the same day.
I would hope so, and in the past they've been amazingly quick in turning
Well,
around.
they've seen this
yeah.
ordinance before, so it's
Yeah,
like,
and I think we've gotten responses on the day of their meeting before, so I mean, if we would reach out to them and ask them to turn it around, it's possible. So.
All right. So, can we have a motion, first of all, to, I guess the first one would be to send it to the Bucks County Planning Commission. That'd be the first motion. Okay. A motion to forward the draft of this, the parking ordinance to the Bucks County Planning Commission for their review. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the second is we have a motion to advertise for adoption of the parking ordinance at the for adoption at the September 13th? No, it wouldn't be the work session. It would be the regular meeting.
13th?
Regular meeting.
I think it's the 13th.
12th, 13th? Whatever it is. What is it, Marcia?
13th.
Do you have a calendar?
it's
September.
the 13th.
It's been a long meeting. Okay, so for our September regular meeting, how does that work? Okay. Is there a motion? 13th.
Hold off on it, but or I might have missed part.
All right, well, if no one wants to make that motion, then we'll wait to hear them to get their comments back. They conceivably could review this and have their comments back in time for a meeting to pass it. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. Would you rather wait? Can wait. Pardon? Okay, we've approved sending it to the Bucks County Planning Commission for review. We can simultaneously advertise for adoption because it's likely that they will have completed their review in time for adopting it at the September meeting, or we can hold off and not.
I agree with you. I thought we agreed to wait on that.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Is that the feeling of council? Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so you'll send that off to Bucks County Planning Commission? All right.
And last item under Last item under solicitor report is the lease for the parking lot behind 10 Center. This would be a lease between the Steeple View Limited Partnership and 10 Center Associates, who are the owners of that property, and Newtown Borough. The lease is for what is actually two separate properties located to the rear of 200 South State Street. Tax parcel numbers 28001, 020, and 28001, 010, This lease is for a period beginning upon execution and terminating on August 31, 2012. The lease is for the amount of $1. Allows the borough to use the property for no purpose other than as a municipal parking lot. Requires standard provisions for insurance, indemnification, and so on. This is the lease that council has reviewed, I believe, on a number of occasions. And Gerard mentioned it earlier this evening. So I would be asking for a motion from council authorizing the president of council to execute this lease. Upon its execution, I will forward it to Alan Smith, the principal of the the property owners. He has indicated a willingness to sign the lease in its present form. Obviously, he has not yet signed it, but I would be forwarding it to him upon execution by council president.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a question. There was a huge gas leak last week on that property, and nothing happened. Luckily, nobody.
A gas leak from what?
There was a gas leak that was bubbling. There's a gas pipe that
Oh,
runs.
natural gas.
Natural gas
Oh, okay.
that runs. It's a 10-inch pipe that runs through that property, under the creek, and over to Sycamore Street. Sycamore Street had to be closed, and we had to dig a couple trenches back there. If something had happened and we were the lessees, I'm just asking the question, would it have been on us, or I don't know. Just that there was this problem. Luckily, nobody threw a cigar out the window, and Alan Smith's project would have been started, the digging at least. But it was a big problem.
Yeah, I looked at item number 4, utilities. All applications and connections for necessary utility services on the premises shall be made in the name of the lessee. Right now, we have responsibility for the electricity only, and I guess I'm asking the question, why are we assuming responsibility for sewer, water, gas, and telephone? I mean, we're renting parking. I mean, I think that is something we should consider. And under care and maintenance, I'm sorry, I didn't see this before, but
Would that not be?
I'm assuming we're responsible for snow removal, and that's not mentioned in here. And I also have to point out that we've been responsible for snow removal, and when First National Bank of Newtown was the tenant, we were able to receive 1/3 of the snow removal expenses back from First National Bank of Newtown, which we will not be getting back in 2012 budget. So I think snow removal has to be included. I also think we're going to have to increase our liability above and beyond what it is. We're taking on this much real estate to park cars on a permit parking basis. Currently, we're at the liability of $5 million, I guess. I think we're going to have to increase our liability, and I don't know if we've checked with our insurance carrier about that.
Well, the amount in the lease is a minimum. Nothing would prevent the borough from obtaining additional insurance. That's
I
just
think we're going to have to take a look at that. And then I think the current lease is between Alan Smith, the bank, and the borough, so we're going to have to get that rescinded, I guess.
So, Paul, wouldn't for number 4, all applications and connections, wouldn't that be if we tied into something, we're responsible then for that utility?
Yeah.
So a gas line running under it, we would not be.
No, that would be under an easement for the gas company, whoever operates and owns that pipe.
John, I was thinking more about paragraph 6. Who's responsible if there is some catastrophic thing? I don't understand the legalese, so I'm just asking.
I mean, to the extent that there's a third party responsible for the damage, such as the owner of the gas line, they would likely have responsibility, but we've agreed to indemnify the property owner unless the injuries were caused by their reckless or willful misconduct. So if something were to happen and there were a lawsuit and the borough and Alan Smith and the gas company were all named as defendants, the borough would have an obligation to indemnify Alan Smith and that, or his companies, the owners, in that litigation. But that would not prevent the borough from then seeking indemnification or seeking a remedy from the gas company as being the responsible party. As far as the snow removal, I'm pretty confident that I could add that. That's not going to be a problem for Alan, obviously, because it's increasing the borough's responsibility. And if, in fact, there is no sort...
I don't want to do it.
I don't think that's an option. And as far as sewer, water, gas, and telephone services, if those aren't used, then again, I don't think he would have any objection to removing them. And again, that's just an including language. So if for some reason some of those services were required, it would be included anyway. But I don't think there would be a problem removing reference to them. What's that? Yeah. And if that's all that's in fact in service, then again, I can't imagine there'd be any objection to removing those others.